Live from WTVO Rockford and your home team. Eyewitness News at 5 starts now.
From roofs being torn off to boats floating in streets, we're getting a look at the severe damage left behind by Hurricane Ian across Florida.
Making your voice heard. Early voting is now underway in Illinois.
And in less than a month, the Ice Hogs are back in action at the BMO. We get a sneak peek at arena renovations that are almost complete.
Good evening, I'm Mimi Murphy.
And I'm Eric Wilson. It's been 24 hours since Hurricane Ian slammed into Florida's Gulf Coast. The destruction left behind is widespread.
Now the storm churning towards the Atlantic, regaining strength for another landfall on the East Coast. Morgan Norwood has the latest.
Hurricane Ian shredding the Florida peninsula, making landfall near Fort Myers as one of the most powerful storms in the state's history.
The impacts of this storm are historic, and the damage that was done has been historic. The Category
4 storm slicing southwest Florida with winds of up to 140 miles per hour. Peeling off roofs from homes and a dangerous 12-foot storm surge scattering debris everywhere. Mangled boats littered along the beach, wreckage scattered across the sand, and the high waters stranding families who thought they could ride it out.
We weren't prepared for quite a storm of this magnitude. We were hoping it would dodge us. It didn't. It got worse.
Others had to be rescued by first responders. Scenes of residents being trucked out of floodwaters by massive vehicles or simply being carried out. Ian unleashing its wrath on cities inland. Kissimmee drenched in rain. Floodwaters creating a lake around these buildings. And in Orlando, patients from a nursing home facility had to be rushed to safety. First responders escorting them out one by one. From southwest Florida to North Florida, Hurricane Ian leaving a trail of destruction. Ahead of his visit to FEMA headquarters, President Joe Biden on the phone with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, approving the state's emergency disaster declaration, unlocking federal funding for the long road to recovery ahead.
We're continuing to see deadly rainfall, catastrophic storm surges, roads and homes flooded. We're seeing millions of people without power and thousands hunkered down in schools and community centers. They're wondering what's going to be left. What's going to be left when they get to go home, quote unquote home.
Ian is on the verge of powering up once again to hurricane status as it moves over the Atlantic. It's taking aim at South Carolina and its governor, also declaring a state of emergency. Morgan Norwood, ABC News, Tampa, Florida.
On Tuesday, we talked to a Stillman Valley graduate now living in Sarasota on Florida's Gulf Coast. She's a nurse and she's been in the hospital the past few days.
Her husband and dog stayed with friends during the hurricane. We just found a few hours ago he was able to drive by their new house. It all looks good. There are just a few branches down in the yard. Another couple originally from Rockford and living in Florida also say they are lucky. Ken and Denise Quillen now are in Port Charlotte, just north of Fort Myers. Denise sent us some pictures of their neighborhood. She says they don't have any electricity, but for the most part, their home was spared, but the neighborhood took a beating. We are partnering with our sister station in Tampa to gather donations for Red Cross relief efforts in Ian's aftermath. You can scan this QR code with your phone to be routed directly to our Red Cross donation page. Belvidere Police asked for help to keep an eye out for a missing 12-year-old. Caleb Hamilton's mom told police he left his house on Hurlbut Avenue sometime overnight Saturday. He was last seen wearing a gray sweatshirt and sweatpants, white Nike shoes, and a red and black backpack with a monster face on it. If you see Caleb, call Belvidere Police.
A child has died after being hit by a car. Janesville police say they responded to East Memorial Drive and Prairie Avenue yesterday afternoon for a report of a car hitting a pedestrian. Officers found a 9-year-old in the street. The child was taken to the hospital but later died. The crash is still under investigation. A Capron man will spend the next 5 decades in prison for killing his wife. In 2018, Juan Cerda stabbed his wife to death. Cerda also had cuts all over his body in the unsuccessful murder-suicide. He had left a note asking for forgiveness and giving custody of their children to someone else. Back in August, a judge found Cerda guilty. Earlier this week, he sentenced Cerda to 50 years, calling the crime cold, calculated, and planned, saying it was the ultimate act of domestic violence. Here at Eyewitness News, we're committed to supporting survivors of sexual and domestic violence. There is help out there for anyone who may need it. You can find a list of resources on our website. Just click on the State Line Strong tab.
If you got a phone call from Illinois State Police recently, well, you are not the only one. The department's warning people about a spoofing scam. Crooks make phone calls and disguise their number to look like the police. Investigators say there's a pause at first, then someone asks for donations for state police.
And they're asking you for your name, date of birth, or social security number. Police departments will not ask you for this information over the phone. If you are confused, you think it's your bank or a reputable place, hang up and say, hey, I'll call you back. Look up the actual number and then call that person and talk to them directly.
If you see a number you don't know, let it go to voicemail first. You can also report the call to police, the state's identity theft hotline, or the Federal Trade Commission.
Early voting for the election in November begins today in Illinois. Eyewitness News is your local election headquarters. According to state statute, voters may begin voting 40 days before any election. Rockford voters can go to the main office of the Rockford Board of Elections. That's on 6th Street. And depending on where you live, you can go to your county clerk's office. In Winnebago County, that's on Elm Street.
Voting is important because the people that we're electing are the people that are representing us, and if we don't vote, we don't really have a say in anything that's happening with our government.
Early voting ends November 7th, the day before the election. The candidates for Illinois governor have agreed to 2 debates that you can see over on our sister station, Fox 39. J.B. Pritzker and Darren Bailey will go head-to-head October 6th at 7 p.m. live from Illinois State University's campus. If you have questions you want the candidates to answer, scan the QR code you see on your screen right now, or you can find a link at mystateline.com.
State Line cancer patients get gifts from the community to make medical treatments a little more comfortable. First Baptist Church of Machesney Park created blessing bags. Organizers hope the bags remind chemo patients they are loved and important. Those packs have things like chapstick, lotion, and a knitted hat. The bags were delivered to UW Health's Regional Cancer Center this afternoon. A State Line cancer survivor says it's always nice to see people give back.
Really, it's just find your way to donate, find your way to reach out to our community, because it's so important that we show love to each other instead of hate.
This was the second time bags have been delivered. The first was back in July.
The Ice Hogs are getting ready for another AHL season.
And crews have been hard at work upgrading Rockford's BMO Harris Bank Center. Coming up, we take a look at how the renovation is going.
And this year was the 30th anniversary of a league of their own. Now, a professional baseball team is celebrating. Coming up at 6, we take a look at what the Cubs did before their game today.
And today was a pretty nice day to get out and enjoy. Started off a little cold, but our numbers warmed quickly for this afternoon. Dry stretch of weather continues straight on into the weekend, but there are some changes to talk about by the end of next week. More on that and Hurricane Ian coming up in your most trusted forecast a little later.
You're watching Eyewitness News, your home team with Eric Wilson, Mimi Murphy, Scott Leber, and Chief Meteorologist Candace King.
The Rockford Ice Hogs are building for their future, and the multi-million-dollar renovations to the BMO Harris Bank Center are underway.
From new bathrooms and club boxes, our Nikel Delgado spent the day touring the building. Nikel, what's happening today?
Eric, Mimi, the BMO Harris Bank Center has less than 1 month until hockey season. There has been many updates happening recently, including giving the ice a fresh coat of paint today.
It's really seeing the progression of what was announced a couple of years ago of a great multi-million-dollar plan coming to fruition.
The Chicago Blackhawks bid to buy the Rockford Ice Hogs means big arena improvements for the BMO. Joseph Zakjeski is the broadcasting and communications manager for the team. He says behind the scenes renovations got underway right away. The makeover also adds the latest technology to enhance the fan experience.
You're going to start seeing changes to the ice itself, the lighting, the scoreboard. I mentioned the suites earlier, but even on the concourse too, the bathrooms, the concession stands, how fans approach and enter the actual building itself is going to have a nice refreshed appeal.
Crews started painting the ice ahead of the Ice Hogs home opener on October 22nd. But it's not all about hockey. The hope is these renovations will bring more top entertainment to Rockford.
To step back into a place that they call home. The BMO is home for so many Ice Hogs fans and concert goers that, they've grown up here since and been coming to events here since the 80s, since the building's been around.
Joseph tells me he can't wait to see fans' first reactions to the new upgrades.
This is something that, not only with the Chicago Blackhawks and the Ice Hogs, the city of Rockford and the state of Illinois invested in, and bringing BMO Harris Bank Center and the Ice Hogs and just the entertainment here in the state line up to another level. And that's something that's going to continue to grow, continue to process, and it's always evolving too.
The Ice Hogs preseason starts next week. They hope to wrap up all of the renovations next year on the off-season. Eric, Mimi?
All right, thanks, Nicole.
It was another sunny and cool day. We're a little bit warmer than yesterday, but not by much.
Yeah, when we come back, Candace shows us if we'll still hit 70 this weekend.
Now, your First Warn weather forecast from Chief Meteorologist Candace King.
Well, it is a bit of a frosty start out there early this morning, but with the sunshine, our temperatures were able to warm nicely here this afternoon. Back into the 60s, beautiful day today. We take a live look with our Supply Corps camera here over downtown Rockford, looking upstream along the Rock River, here brought to us by Window World. You may have noticed over the last, let's say, week or so, the colors in some of the trees really starting to become a little more vibrant as we've had some colder nights, some warmer days. Perfect conditions to really kind of bring out some of that fall color. And of course, we're about a month away from where we typically get our peak fall foliage here in northern Illinois. So love to see your fall pictures. You've got maybe some fall decorations. You've got a big tree there in the front yard that is starting to bloom and show a little more, I shouldn't say bloom, but starting to change its colors a little more. C. King at WTVO.com is where you can share those fall pictures. Would love to see those and share them with folks here this evening. 64 in Freeport, 65 in Rockford, 63 in Poplar Grove, to Calvin 64 right now in Rochelle. Winds are light for the most part as high pressure continues to kind of remain in control across the Midwest. We've got just a few high clouds out there this evening, which will make actually for a pretty beautiful sunset here for tonight. Clouds, rain, wind, a lot of it still continues to wreak havoc across parts of the southeast. Now that Hurricane Ian was down to a tropical storm, back up to a Category 1 hurricane. Center of the storm now back out over the Atlantic, working up to the north and northeast. This is moving to the northeast at about 10 miles per hour. This is one of our cameras down in St. Augustine Beach, down in Florida. Notice conditions actually over the last hour or so have really kind of deteriorated. The surf coming in a little bit more frequent, heavy too. Notice the wind picking up too down there. So still dealing with some flooding and storm surge issues. Actually, much of Florida with even the remnants or what was left over from Category 4 hurricane as it worked down to a tropical storm. Now, as I mentioned, this is a Category 1 moving up to the northeast. It'll hook back up to the northwest, is expected to make landfall sometime tomorrow early afternoon along the coastline of South Carolina, right around Charleston, South Carolina, before weakening as it moves a little further inland. It'll get caught in the jet stream and then move back out to the east and northeast. We take our camera view a little further to the north. This is actually in South Carolina, just south of Charleston. Not quite as hectic as what it was down along the coastline there of Florida, but give it some time and that view will change just a little bit within the next 24 hours. Heavy rainfall too, looking at potential for some double-digit rainfall totals, generally about 5 to 10 inches of rainfall really coming here along the coastline, and still anywhere from maybe 3 to 6 inches even as you get a little bit further inland. So the impact's going to be felt for quite some time. Does not make it up here. In fact, not even going to be dealing with cloud cover from that, as a blocking high pressure system really keeps us fairly quiet. Temperatures tonight on either side of that 40-degree mark, so might see a little patchy frost going into the morning tomorrow. High temperatures tomorrow back into the upper 60s to right around 70 degrees. We'll keep those low 70s going into the weekend. It'll be cold for some of those Friday night football games, so just keep that in mind. That temperature will stay in the upper 60s, low 70s here. And we cool off by the end of the week. I'm trying to get to that 7-day, just doesn't want to show it. And I think it's because by the time we get to next Thursday, guys, I have a forecast high of 57 coming up. So some cooler numbers by the end of next week.
It's probably best that we don't look at that 7-day
We don't
forecast,
want to see that.
right? Because the weekend's going to be great. Let's just focus on the fact that we've got a nice weekend coming.
There you go.
Thanks, Candace.
Scott's in next with his Bears and Packers predictions for this week. Is this the week Justin Fields and the Bears offense gets rolling?
And the Packers prepare to outperform Bill Belichick's Patriots.
Now sports with sports director Scott Leber.
So far, the Bears and Packers are 2-1, and I'm 2-1 picking both teams' games so far this season. Last week, I picked the Bears to defeat the Texans 21-13. The Bears won 23-20. And the Packers defeating the Buccaneers in a low-scoring game 24-17. The Packers won in a game that was even more low-scoring than I had imagined, 14-12. So let's dive into this Sunday's games. The Bears take on the Giants. These two teams are mirror images of each other. They're both 2-1, having taken advantage of some soft opponents. They both have first-year head coaches. They both have quarterbacks who are struggling to establish themselves. And they both run the football well. The Bears rank second in the NFL in rushing yards behind the Browns. The Giants rank fourth in the NFL in rushing. Saquon Barkley, off to a great start, had this big touchdown run against the Cowboys last week. He's averaging more than 100 yards rushing per game and more than 6 yards per carry. If the Bears can stop him, I'm not sure who else the Giants can win with on offense. Their best receiver, Sterling Shepard, tore his ACL last week. Kenny Galladay's been struggling. The Bears should stack the box on defense to slow down Barkley and make somebody else on the Giants' offense beat them. The Giants' pass protection hasn't been good. They've given up 13 sacks. That's the third most in the NFL. This one's probably coming down to a field goal. Both teams have excellent kickers. I've got the Giants winning 20-17. The Bears' run defense has been really bad the last 2 weeks, and I think Saquon Barkley will have a big day for the Giants. All right, the Packers will host Bill Belichick's New England Patriots Sunday. I have complete respect for what Belichick has accomplished, but no one fears him or his team right now. The Patriots are 1-2, although their 2 losses came to very good Dolphins and Ravens teams. Mac Jones is likely out with a high ankle sprain. That means 14-year veteran Brian Hoyer will take his place at quarterback against the Packers defense ranked 6th in the NFL. This game will probably be a struggle bus for both offenses, and the Packers limiting the Patriots to 4 field goals and the Packers winning it 24-12. This game has Aaron Jones' name written all over it. In baseball this afternoon, the White Sox snapped their 8-game losing streak by edging the Twins 4-3. Cubs shut out the Phillies 2-0. The Cubs went 6-0 against the Phillies this season, and now they have 6 games against the Reds to finish up. I'll have highlights at 6. That's sports. We'll be right back.
Our First Warn Interactive Radar brought to us by Rockford Auto Glass and More. Nice and clear here for us tonight. Temperatures down around 40, close to 70 for tomorrow afternoon. Some places will still stay in the 60s, but a nice Friday, nice weekend, dry through next week.
All right, thanks, Candace.
And thanks for spending time with us. Stay safe.